Okay, so we're back and we have finished gluing up the fuselage. It's glued together reasonably well. I still need to do a little bit of sanding on the joints just to make sure they're all just so. And if we look here on the lower joint, then I'm really happy how this has gone together. It took me time, as I said in the last video, glued it bit by bit, made sure it was really well aligned, and there's absolutely no seam there, and I've not lost any of the detail with the rivets. And this piece here has gone in, reinforced the joints. It's actually really sturdy. And once I'd gone around doing all the joins, I then put glue in to the underside of the cockpit and the rotor head deck, which is absolutely fast up the fuselage. It's a really solid build now. Before I joined, I sealed the back of the tail up, but I left the front piece here, which I'm glad I did, because fitting this piece here for the tail rotor shaft proved to be quite challenging just due to its shape. So in hindsight, it would actually been better trying to fit this piece before I'd glued the whole of the tail together, just to give me enough room to open it up and then close the sides in around it, which would have made it easier to fit. It's still possible to fit it with this unglued, and you can open this up and get enough room to get it tweaked in, but it is a very tricky fit. So again, a bit more clarity and instructions on when and where to fit this piece into the tail assembly would have been better, but it's in and it fits really well. No seam line other than what you'd expect, because that's obviously a piece that would come away naturally from the aircraft. So yeah, really quite happy with that. Now, another area that I found that's lacking in the instructions, and I did point out in my review, was this part here, where in the instructions it's requiring you get Q29 and fasten it to the cockpit here. But then if you look in this step here, Q29 is now fastened to the front canopy, and if you look closer, you've got this line saying 180 mils, and you've got 3 photo etch parts and 4 grab handles. Well, the holes for the grab handles are there, and they're easy enough to fasten, and it's easy enough to fasten in the photo etch parts, and I'm assuming these are air conditioning nozzles. However, because they've already told you to glue Q29 in here, and you've also got E28 going up the side, which is gluing it onto Q29, there's no way you can do both. So this is a big mistake in the instructions. And the other problem is this 180 mil is this black wire in the kit that's supposed to represent the air conditioning ducting. And if you look here, I've got it fitted, loosely fitted in, because it passes through Q29. So I've got it loosely fitted and shaped already in the cockpit for when this goes on, because what I've done is I've masked both the inside and the outside, and I shall be painting this matte black and then putting it on. And what I'll have to try and do very carefully with a little drop of super glue is actually fix this up. If you see it's flexible, fix this up to the canopy once it's in, and then that'll hold it in place. But what I did do was hold the canopy in place and then gently manipulated it so it's taken the form and shape of where it roughly needs to go, so when I actually come to glue it on, it's near enough into place. But it's a bit tricky, and you need to take your time, you need to be careful, but it's a big mistake in the instructions, because doing this doesn't marry in with doing this, so they've really dropped the ball here. So, you know, what is a fantastic kit, and it is, I'm not going to knock it, it's a fantastic kit, but Takom they've let themselves down with the instructions. So there's a bit of forewarning for you. That's how I've gotten around doing it. Passed it through, shaped it up to the canopy, going to paint the canopy, put it on, and then I'll just gently tack it in with some super glue, being very careful before I seal the rest of the canopy in, to let that super glue properly cure off so you don't get any fogging on the inside of the canopy, but you have to be very, very careful and only use the smallest amount of super glue to tack it in place. So there we go, that's where we're at the moment. So the next job is going to be spraying the canopy insides matte black, put a little bit of, well, it'll be semi-gloss black, and then seal it with a little bit of black varnish. There is a little bit of detail. I'm not going to go to town doing any dry brushing. In fact, I probably won't even use matte black. I might use rubber black or NATO black just to sort of lift it a little bit. We'll see how it looks. But it will look really good once you unmask it and you've actually got the painted interior of the canopy parts. It'll look very realistic. The canopies themselves, the plastic they use for it is absolutely fantastic. Crystal clear, beautifully polished molds, so you probably won't even have to dip these canopies. Well, I'm certainly not going to be dipping them in any form of gloss coat to get them to shine. The shine's already on them, so yeah, top marks for the actual plastic itself is really, really good. I mean, you can see that layout over the drawing there, you can see right through it, and the actual canopy parts that are masked are beautiful. So the actual technical part of the kit is brilliant, just let down with the instructions and the thinking, but hey ho, you can't have it all. So let's get on, I'll get this sprayed and then we'll come back and look about how we're going to get the canopies fastened onto the aircraft. Okay, so whilst we are waiting for the canopy parts to dry up before we try and put them together, I thought we might move on to the next stage of the build. So we've got some of the ancillary parts, or greeblies or whatever. So you've got antennas, wipers, hand grab handles, sensors to go on the exterior of the fuselage. In part 7 we've got the chain gun to look at. So I thought we might look at building this, and then if we go over to step 8, then you've got the chain gun going in under the underside, the belly pan going in, more grab handles, and then the front sensor array getting put together. So we'll start with this section, get this built up, see how it is, and then we can then look at getting the under section put on, and then by that time hopefully the canopy will be dried enough that we can get it onto the aircraft and start putting it together. So I'll get all these parts cut out and then we'll come back and look at the assembly. Right, so we've got all the parts off and we've given them a clean up. So let's see how we get together. Now this, I start with part F8, and then I've got the K1, which is the rubberized ammunition feed chute. So that, I think, difficult to say how it goes together. So there's F36 and F8. So there you go. Right, they go like that. So in that respect then I do believe that that does go in possibly there. How does it go in that way? Let's have a look and see. Okay. So it looks like that sandwiches underneath like this, and this then gets glued down to here, if we can see that. Come on, focus. There. So that's how that goes together. It's not the most spectacular of fits, to be fair, but it fits all the same, so we'll just have to go with it. I'm sure when we put glue to it, it'll come together a bit better. It's definitely tricky to get these parts together in a sensible way. So I think I'm happy enough to commit to glue there. So we'll get the tiny extra thin out and we'll go for it. To get this to hold together properly, I'm actually going to apply the surfaces of a closed peg and get some constant pressure on that. I don't know if this rubber is going to glue to the styrene, but we can try and see. It might activate. It might be that we'll need to use a bit of super glue to get that to stick. No, it actually seems to be sticking okay with the extra thin, which is really good. Okay, I'm happy with that. Fine, so let that cure up a little moment. In the meantime, we've got the barrel here, and this is beautifully slide molded. Can't get the focus, get it into focus, go on, there we go. So you can see that it's got a slide molded end. We've got really nice detailed muzzle brake, and then we've also got the barrel shrouders here as well. Yeah, really nice, and not too much burring to remove. If I can just swap that around that way. It's gluing up pretty fast as well, so that's really good. So we can get that in there, we can pop the barrel in. Which way does the barrel go? Goes that way down. What sort of fit is it? That's the next question. The fit is really nice. That's popped in there beautiful. So drop of glue. Make sure it's pressed home. Yeah, I'm enjoying that. That's okay in my book. Make sure it's straight, so give it the Mark 1 eyeball test, make sure it all looks square. All happy with that. Let's have a look at the next stage. So we've got part F5 to go on the side. We can't, well, we can probably just do that. And then we've got part F29 to marry up with the barrel and the top of this. So whilst this is curing, what I'm going to do is remove the rest of these parts to finish this assembly, and then we can come back and then get these two parts on and then move on with the build. So whilst it's gluing, we'll do that and we'll be back in a moment. Right, so we're back. So we've got the parts taken off the sprue, laid out on the instructions where we're needing them. And we've got this part together here, so it's looking really nice. So part F29 goes over the top and marries in so that fits over the top like that and locks into the gun barrel. So we can put a drop of glue on. F5 actually isn't so easy to see where F5 goes. Go underneath it maybe. Right, I think part F5 possibly goes on the end here. So if we just drop a glue on that fixing point and tweezers and then pop it on, yeah, that's exactly where it goes. But you need to make sure you get it on the right way. So there's a hole on one side and fins on the other, and the fins need to go on the opposite side of where the ammunition feed chute is. So that's where it goes there, underneath, like that. Little tap on the end, make sure it's got a grip. Right, then we're going to move on to the guard and wire cutter, and that is exquisitely molded. I have found with some of these parts there's a little bit of flash on them. Nothing to get too stressed about, but sometimes I find it's easier if you want to clean these up is if you get it all together as one solid piece, especially with this thinner plastic. Then you can scrape it with a knife or give it a little burnish with this appropriate sanding stick, and because it's all glued together and braced, then it won't break, because some of these parts can be pretty fragile. But they are going together really rather nicely. That will tweak together like that. And then we've got this piece here. In fact, this is a really rather good piece to see. See, there's a little bit of flash, bearing flash on the corners. So this piece we can actually just give it a rub with a smooth soft sanding stick, skinny stick. And then that is to go on the rear and fasten down. Which way around does it go? Because it is slightly different. It possibly goes this way around. Yeah. So a bit of glue here and fixing points. There we go. And then when we get in position, there's a little locating hole on the part for this to then be glued. You don't need a lot of glue. This Takom plastic seems to like tinier extra thin, so it doesn't take long before it's bitten into it and gotten a good bond. If you think you need to put a drop more glue on, just tap it into the joint and let it do its business. Right. So from this stage here, we're moving down to get the actual cradle of this together. So you've got a trunnion pin here and here, and that will go into the corresponding holes here and here. Now these parts were a little bit flashy. It cleaned off very, very easily with the edge of, see that there, you can just get the scrape it with the scalpel blade nice and lightly, and that takes the flash away straight away. So need to put F1 on first. And then the rest of it I think will go together once we've put the two sides together. So this is part F1. And he goes in here and up the side there. And there is a small locating hole there. put a drop of glue, and we'll hold that to give it a bit more purchase. And then that goes in there. Now there is a little bit of burring on this part. Again, a swipe with the sand and stick will clean that away. Right, so that's that part in. Now we can stick, and if we're careful as we stick this together, there's possibly no reason why this gun should not elevate up and down. Shouldn't, but we'll see. It's quite tricky. One way of doing this might actually be, give it a go, give this a little stick together to start with. There we go. Once we get a bit of grip on it, we might be able to manipulate it apart enough just to slip it onto the trunnion pins and then reaffix it together. So when we're looking down on it, we want to make sure that it's all nice and even. There we go. Right, now that's held together. Let's orientate this properly. I've got huge hands and big fingers, so sometimes it's a bit tricky for me, but I try my best. So clip that on there, and clip that on there. There we go. So all intents and purposes, the gun should be posable to a degree. So now we've got that on the trunnion pins, we can put a little more glue on this joint here and get it to set up properly. So making sure we've got it all oriented properly and aligned. Give it a gentle squeeze, and if you squeeze it from 4 points, it should compress it nicely. Get the plastic to bite together, and it'll hold. It's good. And if need be, we can always. Actually, I think the gun is designed to turn. Right, so we can just glue it all together. So if you look here, part F1 is designed to glue up here. And that's dictating the angle of the barrel. So we can get that part glued on there. Then we can glue these two trunnion pins, and that will make it really, really strong. So I'm sure if you want to make it a bit more posable, you could cut down or move this or mold it, but I think I'm quite happy to have it molded in the position that it's designed for, purely for strength. Right, so we've then got part F17 to go in, and for the life of me I have no idea where it's supposed to go. Possibly here. Yes, it is, because there's a little hole in here, so we can put a drop of glue here. Drop my tweezers, and then that will sit in just there. Glue. That's all the wiring lined up. That's looking really nice. There we go. I'm going to say there'll be a little bit of cleanup on this, just to hide some seams and tidy stuff away. Intrinsically, it's all coming together really nicely. So We're now on to F10 and F11, and we've got F2 to look to. So here's F2. That would appear to go from here to here to finish the guard. Sometimes the tweezers, you just don't get the grip you're looking for. There we go. Sometimes the parts are slightly too long for what they should be. I need to encourage that better place. There we go. So get it in the end there. Tease that one away there, and then get that in. I'm reluctant to cut this any shorter because I think the way we're manoeuvring this, it's actually getting the barrel guard into a correct position. But it's tricky. There we go. That's it. Get that glued in, a little extra glue there, nice, nicely bonded together. Right, so the last bit to do is to carry on this wiring here. So F10 is this part, and again I've cut them off as neat as I can from the sprue. But I will take a time to get them cleaned up from, there's a little bit of flashing on them. I'll clean them up when they're actually set and cured, and then they'll be a lot stronger to work with as a whole. I try not to drop them. So F10 goes in here. And then into there, so drop a glue so it'll catch. Sometimes they take a bit of spring in the plastic, so you might need just to give it a little stretch like that, and then it won't fight against the glue and it'll hold itself in place. Lovely. Yep, that's fine. And then the last piece here is F11, and that goes in there. So that's why it's important to get this orientated in the right way, and then in there like that. And on like that. Enough glue to get it to bite. There we go. And that's it. So I'll go off camera, hold this in place to get it cured up. and then we'll come back and look at getting, hopefully we're now the cockpit glazing fixed, and then we can move on to getting this affixed to the underbelly. So see you back here in a moment.